Well, hello and welcome back to math. We are going to look at ratios again. Some of you are noticing we are in lesson 5. We're going to continue working with something called equivalent ratios. Okay, remember a ratio is two numbers, and remember that there's 3 ways to write ratios. We can do it this way, we could do it this way, or we can do it this way. We also remember that ratio, the order of the number is very important. Okay, and I'm going to explain that here in our first problem. So let's go ahead and look at example number 1. It says a country superintendent of highways is interested in the numbers of different types of vehicles that regularly travel within his county. In the month of August, a total of 192 registrations were purchased for passenger cars and pickup trucks at the local Department of Motor Vehicles. The DMV reported that in the month of August, for every 5 passenger cars registered, there were 7 pickup trucks registered. How many of each type of vehicle were registered in the county in the month of August? Okay, and so we're going to work on solving that. I did notice here I have some numbers that we're going to use for some ratios. We had a 5 and we had a 7, and then I also noticed up here a number of 192. So the first problem, or letter A, says using the information in the problem, write 4 different ratios and describe the meaning of each. 4 different ratios. Okay, well, I'm going to pause the screen and I'm going to put down 4 ratios, and we're going to see if you guys can figure out what my ratios stand for. Okay, so if you notice, I kind of separated this space into 4 spaces, and I have 4 different ratios: 5 to 7, 7 to 5, 5 to 12, and 7 to 12. None of my ratios are the same. Now, we have to explain what the numbers stand for. So if we notice, I have the number 5 and 7. And if I go back up here to the story, we know that 5 stands for passenger cars that are registered, and 7 stands for pickup trucks that are registered. Okay, so what I would like for you to write is 5 to 7. What does that stand for? Cars to trucks. Cars is the first word, so it's going to match with 5, and trucks. So this is a ratio for cars to trucks, and this is what we would call a part-to-part ratio. We're talking about part of the cars that are registered and the other part that are trucks registered. Okay, we're not talking about how many vehicles and all. All right, so let's go over here and look at the 7 and 5. Well, what does the 7 stand for? Well, if we look at the 7 is basically reversed. It's the ratio of trucks to cars. So we're going to say here that it's trucks this time first to cars. And once again, we're still talking about part to part. So this is what we would call a part to part ratio. Okay? We're talking about part of the cars that are registered and part of the trucks. We're not talking about all the vehicles. All right, let's go down here to 5 and 12. Let's look at our story. 5. 5, well, obviously 5 is cars. 12, I don't see a number 12. But if you notice, if I look at the number 5 and the number 7 and I add them together, I do get 12. 12 for all of the vehicles. That would be our whole. So 5, we're going to say that 5 stands for cars, and 12 stands for the total vehicles. So now we have a ratio that is part to whole. The whole group, all the vehicles, 5 and 7. So over here, 7 to 12, well, 7, remember, stands for our trucks. We're talking about trucks. 2, 12 would be the total vehicles. And this would once again be a part to whole. Now, if you need to pause the video here so that you can write this all down, please do that. Otherwise, we're going to move on to part B. Part B says we're going to make a tape diagram that represents the quantities in the part-to-part ratios that you wrote. Okay, part to part. So we're going to look at these. That was part to part, part to part. So we need the 7 and 5. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's put the cars first and the trucks next. And we are going to make sure we have the amount of tapes that go with the cars and the trucks. Well, cars up here right now here, is 5, so we'll make 5. Trucks is 7, so we will make our tape diagram for 7. Okay, so part C says, how many equal-sized parts does the tape diagram consist of? How many equal pieces do we see up here in all? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are 12 pieces. What total quantity does the tape diagram represent? Total quantity. Well, if you think back to our story up here, it said here we had a total of 192 registrations. 192. So that means our total quantity down here is going to be 192 vehicles. Okay, well, before we turn the page, 192 vehicles we said for the total. So our ratio was for basically for every 5 cars that are registered, we have 7 trucks. The total is 192. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say this whole group, all of this, has to equal 192. I have to take 192 and separate it into all of these boxes. Well, that looks like there's 12 boxes. So I'm basically going to take 192 and divide it by 12. All right, so you can see I quickly have my calculator here. We're going to go ahead and take 192 and we're going to divide it into the 12 boxes. And we have an answer of 16. Well, if you remember, that means 16 goes in each box. Okay, so now with 192 total registered vehicles, we can actually solve how many total cars that would be and how many trucks. We have 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And so I'm going to go ahead and find out that 16 times 5. Let's go ahead and check that out here. So we found out that we have 80 cars. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 16, 7 times for trucks. That's 112. Now, obviously, if I take my 112 and I add my 80, I need to make sure that I will get the total vehicles, 192. Okay, so we already did all the work here on the front side, so it makes it a little bit easier for when we flip over to the back and answer the question. So go ahead and turn your page over. Okay, and our question here says, what value does each individual part of the tape diagram represent? And if you remember, inside those boxes, okay, we did 192, and we divided it into 12 boxes, and we got the answer 16. If you remember, our answer was 16. Okay, part F says, how many of each type of vehicle were registered in August? Well, we solved that. We said that there were 80 cars. And then, if you don't remember, you can always flip back over here. Okay, those were our 2 numbers. And we found out that there were 112 trucks. Okay, we were able to solve all of this by using the ratio and the numbers in our story problem. Okay, let's move down to example number 2. The superintendent of highways is further interested in the numbers of commercial vehicles that frequently use the country's highways. He obtains information from the Department of Motor Vehicles for the month of September and finds that for every 14 non-commercial vehicles, there were 5 commercial vehicles. If there were 108, better circle this, 108 more non-commercial vehicles than commercial vehicles, how many of each type of vehicle frequently use the county's highways during the month of September? Lots of information, so we're going to have to probably reread and go back to solve some of these problems. First thing we're going to do, though, is we're going to make a tape diagram, and we're going to notice that we're going to find that there's 14 non-commercial and 5 commercial. So I want you to go ahead and label here non-commercial. And then I'm going to ask you to go ahead and make your tape diagram for 14. And then down here we will do commercial. Okay, so go ahead and pause your video so that you can make 14 here for non-commercial and 5 down here for commercial. All right, so you will notice I have a nice long tape diagram here for my non-commercial vehicles of 14, and I have 5 here for my commercial. Now, if you notice, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's go ahead and put a little line to see where we have the same amount. So here's where kind of we have the same. Okay, this is the extra. The reason why I'm doing that is you will notice up here, if we reread, it says here, if there were 108 more non-commercial vehicles. So obviously there's more here. And that more right here, this more, is 108. Okay, these are the same. So if I have to take 108 and separate it into these boxes, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boxes. So we're going to need to take 108 and divide it by 9. And go ahead and write that there and see if you can solve that problem for me. Okay, so I found out 108 divided by 9 is 12. So that means we're going to put 12 in all of these boxes. And you also get to put 12 in all of these boxes. Okay, so now we can actually solve how many non-commercial vehicles there are in all and how many commercial vehicles there are in all. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and find out how many non-commercial vehicles we have. Remember, we made 14 boxes, so we are going to actually take 12 times 14. And we're finding out that there were 168. So non-commercial vehicles is 168. Let's find out how many commercial. Well, we have 12 here, and we have 12 here 5 times. And we found out that the answer is 60. All right, so we have here when it asked us how many of each type of vehicle, we were able to find out 168 non-commercial vehicles and 60 commercial. All right, let's go ahead and flip over to the next page. Okay, so let's do one more problem here together. It says the ratio of the number of people who own a smartphone, so smartphones first, to the number of people who own a flip phone is 4 to 3. Okay, so remember 4 is going to go with the smartphone, and 3 is going to go with the flip phone. If 500, oh, here's that more again. 500 more people own a smartphone than a flip phone, how many people own each type of phone? So let's go ahead and make our tape diagram. So we'll put our label here, smartphone. And we'll put our label here, flip phone. The tape for smartphone, remember, is 4. And the tape for flip will be 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and put our little line here where we have the equal amount. Here's 3 and here's 3. So this is the same and that's extra. All right, so here, the other number we have in our story is 500. It says if 500 more people own a smartphone. Well, here's the more, right? This is the more, so we'll put a circle around the more. And that circle has to represent 500. Well, the nice thing is there's only one box, so we don't have to separate the 500 at all. So we're going to go ahead and just put the 500 in that box, which means we have to put 500 in all of the boxes. So now we can find out how many people own each type of phone. How many smartphone? We have 500. 1, 2, 3, 4. Most of us know that 500 4 times is 2,000. And then we have here, how many people own a flip phone? 500 times 3 would be 15,000. So, smartphone, 2,000 people own. Flip phone, 15,000 people own. Okay, so after looking at these problems, I thought maybe I probably should do one more with you, just because I want to review how we do total. Okay, up here we did more, and we've done more on that page before, but let's do one more total. This is going to be very similar to the one we had on the front page about the cars and trucks. It says Sammy and David were selling water bottles to raise money for new football uniforms. Sammy sold 5 water bottles for every 3 water bottles David sold. Together they sold 160 water bottles. So we know Sammy is 5. And we know David is 3. Now, if we want, we can go ahead and put the line that shows where they have the same. Okay, there's 2 extra, but we don't need the more, because if you look carefully at this problem, it doesn't say more. It says they sold 160 water bottles, okay, together. So that means this whole thing, all of this, has to equal 160. And so we need to take 160 and divide it into all these boxes, okay? Because once again, together they sold 160. This is nothing. There's no word that says more. It's together, all of these. So we're going to take 160, and we have to divide it into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 boxes. So you're going to take 160 and divide it by 8, which means you're going to have 20. Okay. All right, so what I would like for you to do is I'm going to have a Google Doc attached, and I want you to tell me on this Google Doc, you're going to do a couple things. You're going to have to tell me how many water bottles Sammy had, how many water bottles David had. Okay, that's going to be simple. You just have to add those up. I already did the work for you. Then I have 2 more problems, and I want you to finish these 2 problems. This one is about Miss Johnson and Miss Sipple. They're folding report cards. Here's your ratio for making 2 to 3. Be careful. This one is a total one again, total 300. So this is going to be similar to this up here, total. Then down here, you're going to have boys to girls. But boys to girls, when you do that tape diagram, this one's going to be similar to the one up here on the top, because it says the word more. Okay, so I want you guys to go ahead and finish telling me the answer for number 2, and then I want you to go ahead and see if you can attempt to make the tape diagrams for 3 and 4 and give me your answers on your Google Doc. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and ask your teacher. Otherwise, I will not see you on Friday, but I will hopefully get to talk to you guys all again next week. Have a great weekend.